Hey everybody, welcome to another build session of Spitball in Adalo and Softer and daily.co and Airtable and Notion and some other random stuff that we'll be using. Adobe Spark, there you go. Everybody should get excited because it is Friday. That means the weekend is upon us. I dare not say winter is coming because that's a bad thing. The weekend is coming. I have my candle, my TJ Maxx candle that my wife said that I should get. And I'm very glad that she did because it smells amazing. But yes, so we are going to continue our build of Spitball. Really quickly, if you don't know, hey James, how's it going? Real quickly, if you don't know about Spitball, basically, I'm going to try and keep this brief. I feel like it keeps getting longer, like every time I do it. But basically, Spitball is a place, is a social media platform. We need another one of those, right? That focuses a lot on not being toxic. So creating more personal relationships through video and audio, one-on-one, instead of just through text. If you've been on Facebook or Twitter, you know how toxic and vile people can be to each other. And the whole idea behind this is to find people that share your interests, or maybe find people that are experts in something that you don't know about, and be able to connect with them one-on-one. And so we're using Adalo to create the app, and we are going to incorporate Try Daily. Well, that's our Twitter handle, but daily.co, which is an embeddable video chat tool. We'll be embedding that as well. And yeah, I think last week we left off with this sessions page because we wanted to have users basically sign up for or create a session with an expert that they want to meet with. Or it doesn't even have to be an expert, right? These are just like people that you think are interesting and that you want to talk to, right? And people can charge for that, or they can, do it for free or whatever. But the basic idea here is just that users are finding people that they want to connect with, and they're scheduling meetings with them, right? And there's umpteen million platforms to do that out there. This is just another one to add to the fire, I guess. But the main gist of this is just educational in nature and to give us something kind of fun to work on. So yeah, we got the session. The session is what the person creates, like when they schedule stuff, or when they want to schedule a session with somebody. But then last week we added the ability to create suggested times for those sessions. So each suggested time is tied to one sesh, and a sesh can have multiple times. And the reason for this is just because if I'm contacting somebody and I want to have, quote unquote, an appointment with them, right, then it makes it a whole lot easier for that person to choose the time than it does to like go back and forth like in chat or something to try and select a time. So what we're going to have the person do that wants to meet is have them create a session first, which I think we've already done up here in this top section up here. Yeah, so when they click on this little calendar icon for the expert, it creates a session, and then this screen here allows them to create times, suggested times for that session, and they should suggest at least 3. And then we added some visibility on this done button to make sure that they can't actually click done unless they've added at least 3 right? So we're counting the suggested times, make sure it's greater than or equal to 3, and then they can, consider it done. Because we don't want them to just like create a session and then only give this person one time to pick from. That would be very hard to schedule. So that said, also we want input on this as well. So if you have an idea that you think would be good, like last week someone suggested that we have like self-expiring rooms, meeting rooms that people go into, and I think that's a great idea. Something that we're probably going to do here in just a second. If not this one, then definitely the next session, because we're getting close to the point where we can actually build the screen where the room is going to be embedded in. So we did the custom action for creating the room last time, and we'll probably be utilizing that a little bit today as well. That said, if it's your first time watching this, definitely go and check out the first 2 build sessions as well. That'll kind of get you up to speed on how we've made the rest of it. And then also make sure I feel like a standard YouTuber now, but like and subscribe to the channel, because that way you'll get notifications for when this goes live, when we do this live build session every week at 2 p.m. Eastern, and you can come in and we can kind of build together. But let's go ahead and finish building out this session screen. So we've got like this tab menu here for requests, upcoming, and past sessions. And this already is a list of sessions. And this is the logged in users' sessions that they participated in. Yes. Or are participating in, I guess. So we really just need to make sure that this shows the current sessions creating users full name. Whoever like created this session, or maybe I know what we can do. Let's actually show it like this. Let's say like the current sessions creating user's first name, and then we'll just put like and you. Maybe that's a good way to do it. That way, like when you go in here and you look at the sessions, you can see like, oh, this session's between me and. So I mean, this is pretty much always going to say and you if you're looking at this page, but it just makes it seem a little bit more like a, rather than it just having the other person's name here, it just shows both of you here. And maybe we can do this with the picture as well, like. Current sessions, creating user's profile photo. Yeah, I think that'll work good. And then the cool thing, so let's go ahead and add this. We had like a forward button over here, I think. So that like when they click on something, it takes them to it, I thought. Maybe not. We may have to make that button. Because we did make this button last time, but after I went back and looked at it, I'm like, it's not the same weight. Like this portion here is skinnier, it's thinner than the other icons. So I think what we'll do is just replace this with something that's a little bit thicker. And then from there, we can just like flip this around to point the other direction for the button that we need. So let's go in here and try to find us a button that's going to work. I mean, I guess the one thing that we can do if we can't find one, like this one's pretty cool, actually. Actually, yeah, I think this will work good because this one's a little bit thicker, and yeah, let's do this instead. I'm using Adobe Spark here, by the way. Sorry, I'm saving it to let's save it as the back button. Yes, I will replace it. Okay, cool. And let's go back in here. And we can't, since I've already downloaded this, I'm just going to go back to my projects here and go back to Spitball. I'm just going to like duplicate this and make it the forward button. Obviously, it's not the forward button yet, but we're about to make it the forward button. So let's just flip this sucker around. It looks a little off for some reason. It's maybe not centered. There we go. Still looks weird though. Doesn't it? Look a little weird. It's like, it's telling me it's the center, but it's not. There, it doesn't look like it's the center. Yeah, I think that's fine. Forward button, Boyton, forward Boyton. Misspelled it. Okay, so I'm just gonna drag a photo into this list here. Not exactly sure, or actually what I might do is, well, yeah, we'll just leave it here in this list. I'll just make it the same size as the one that's up here so that everything looks nice and cohesive here. So this one, the size is 18 by 18. That seems really small, but I don't guess it. I guess it really matters. Let's see. Upload. The forward button. And that's way too big. 18 and 18. And actually, I just realized this is actually the wrong. This is like the wrong color. Like over here, it blends in somehow. It's so weird. It blends in, but it looks okay. Like that looks fine to me. I don't know. But then over here, it's almost like it needs to be darker or something. Make it a shade darker. Yes. Probably have to go back and do that to the rest of them, but and like typically these, you'll notice like this is not being repeated through the list here. And that's typically because the, sometimes you have to pick this up and redrop it into the list. And you can always tell if it's actually in the list by looking up here at this little thing. If it says list up here or whatever the name of the list is, you know that it's actually in there. But like if I just pick this up and then just kind of like redrop it, it'll make it repeat throughout the rest of the list there. So yeah. And actually, I don't know. This may actually be too dark, to be honest. Let's kind of set it back. I don't know that I like that, actually. Let's go and actually change over here too, because I think these really legitimately are like too dark. Yeah, that's fine. You know, I'm not like super concerned about it, obviously. And so yeah, we'll have to go back and fix like basically all of those, but okay. So the next thing that I need to do, like I've got to have different separate lists for each of these. Actually, these menus are probably, Too dark as well. Goodness. Everything is too dark. Beautiful. Okay. So for each of these menu items here, and I've got a rectangle back behind this to kind of keep these things from jumping around on the screen. This is actually a pretty common issue that makers have with laying out their screens and stuff is, elements shifting around on the page. Like they look fine in the editor and sometimes even in the preview, but then maybe when you see it in a test flight build or actually in the app itself, it shifts around on you. So actually putting things in containers like this really, really helps. It doesn't always, but a lot of times it really, really helps with keeping things where they need to be. So that's the reason I've got this kind of white rectangle behind all of this stuff. And then the other thing that I want to do is kind of bump this list up right against that rectangle, because the way that the visibility works in Adalo is that anything that's touching the thing above it, if it's not there, it's going to be replaced by whatever's below it. And that'll make more sense in just a second. So I guess let's make this like the requests list. So we've got the logged in users sessions, but we need to make it so that it's only viewing the ones that have not been accepted yet. And maybe we need to add another true false here for like ignored, or something so that they can clear those out if they want to without accepting them. I don't know. Feel free to make suggestions on that, because people would be mad if they knew that people were ignoring their session requests. But so we only want to show the ones that are requested, and what defines whether or not a session is requested or not is probably whether or not it is accepted. Except obviously accepted sessions are going to be in either upcoming or past. So this should probably be false. So if they haven't accepted their session request yet, it needs to be marked as false. And then this one, all these other lists down through here are going to look basically exactly the same. So I'm just going to like Alt click and drag this thing down. And then again, this list needs to be just touching that list above it, because we're going to add some conditional visibility to these as well. And this one is actually going to be different, but I like to reset these lists actually. So these are also sessions, and they are also, the logged in users sessions where they are the participant. So logged in users sessions they participated in. And we need to add another filter here so that it's only the upcoming session. And I think this is where we're going to get into, like, we have a start date and time here. So this is where we're going to need to say only show the sessions where the start date and time is after, like, today. Hey, Matt, welcome. I'm glad you don't want to miss the video. That's cool. And feel free to provide any input as well as we go along, things that you might think would be good to add or to have in the app. Okay, so the start date and time is after, it should be either the current time or the start of today. Probably after the current time, I guess, because you don't want to see sessions that maybe happened earlier in the morning but you've already had them, so they're technically in the past. This is like Inception or Tenet or something. Has anyone seen Tenet? I thought that was a fantastic movie. I'm still a little bit confused about the part at the gate, though. So if you can explain that to me. I've watched like 50 YouTube videos about Neil and the gate and all that mess, and I still cannot figure it out. So, okay, so I'm going to rename these lists, actually. This will help us out. So this is the requests list. This is the upcoming list, and get this out of the way. And we need actually one more here for the sessions that are already in the past as well. So let me just, again, Alt click drag, or if you're on a Mac, it's Option click drag this down to create a duplicate. Voila. Okay, and again, I like to reset these list of sessions, and again, it's the sessions that the users are a participant in, because they could either be the requester of the session, or they could actually be the receiver of the session request as well. So this should be sessions participants here. And then we need a filter here, very similar to the upcoming one. We're going to add one for the past sessions as well. And in this case, this is where the start date and time is before the current time. And we may need to go into these, we'll have to look and see, but we may have to go in at some point and like reset this magic text as well. Sometimes you don't, but if you reset the list like that, it's usually just good to go in and put that information back in. So first name, and we'll just do the same for this one. Current sessions, creating or initiating users, first name. And I guess we'll just, let's just go through the whole thing. Current sessions, creating users, profile photo. Or actually, you know what? I just realized that if you are not the person receiving this request, let's say you're the initiator, you're going to see your photo here. And I don't think that's a good thing. Because you don't want to see like your own photo or your own name and you. That doesn't make any sense. So do y'all see what I'm saying? Like, if I'm the person receiving the request, this works fine, because it's just telling me like, hey, here's who requested it and you. And this is the person who requested the meeting's photo. But if I am the person who did the requesting, right? I'm the one who wanted to meet with somebody. I'm going to see my name here and my photo here. So I think what needs to happen is we need to do a list inside of a list situation here. So we've got a list of sessions, but we're going to do a list of the participants in those sessions, in that particular session. So I'm going to select this and this technically, and we're going to make this a list. And it looks really weird, but we're going to make this only... Now, there's only ever going to be one item in the list, right? But it's just going to be whoever the other person is. We're just going to kind of exclude ourselves from the list. So this is a list of users, but it's the current sessions participants, really, is what we want to show, which is down here. Current sessions participants. And again, we don't want to see ourselves in this list. So we want to say only the participants where the email is not equal to the logged in user's email, which is us. Sweet. And then all we have to do is just change this photo as well. So instead of the current sesh as user, this is actually going to be the current seshes, or no. Wait, what the crap? Oh, current user's profile photo. And then this is just going to be the current user's first name. There we go. So now no matter what, no matter if you are the requester or the person being requested, it's going to be the other person's name that shows here. So that'll be, I think that'll work pretty good. So we'll do the same thing here. Got a list within a list going on here. So again, list of users. This is the current session's participants. And current session is actually referring to this list item right here. Because it is a list of sessions, it's referring to this list, this main list item. Yeah. Matt, have you ever done list within a list type stuff at all in your apps? Current user, profile photo. Current user, first name. There we go. Same thing with this. Is this a list? Users. Shorten that up a little bit. Current sessions participants. Oh, I forgot to do the email filter on that one, but we can do that in a sec. Current users, profile photo. Oh yeah, okay. Cool. Yeah, the list within a list thing is really, really powerful. And you're so right. Like having the database set up correctly is really critical, because if you don't have that set up correctly, it can make it really, really hard to do it. But sometimes, like, I find myself like I have to go back and add stuff to the database or remove stuff from the database sometimes to make it reflect correctly in the list itself. So yeah, I definitely. I mean, I've been where you're at for sure, where the items just don't want to show up in the list correctly. Okay, so where the email is not equal to the logged in user's email, because we don't want to see ourselves. And again, where the email is not equal to the logged in user's email. Perfect. Okay, so I think the only thing that we have left here to do is just make sure that these lists are only visible when you click on the tab that's correlated to them. And I just realized I didn't name this list either. So let's name this like past list. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, and honestly, like, I think that's what people get stressed out about, is they think that they have to have their database like perfectly set up before you do the entire app. And probably in traditional development that was true, just because it took so much time to do that. But with Adalo, it's so like you can just go in and make changes in like seconds, right? So it's not like a huge deal to go in and have to change the database completely if you need to. But yeah, I mean, people get so psyched out about having to make changes to the database. Like, I make changes to the database all the time to fit what I need. Sometimes you have to like delete stuff, just like you're saying. Like, you have to add properties, take away properties, delete whole collections. I mean, it never ends, it seems. Okay, so let's add some visibility to this. So this is the list of requests. So I really don't, I remember we named these 1, 2, and 3. And each of these buttons, not the blue buttons, but these gray buttons here, they actually update a property in the user's collection. Yeah, it's called the sessions toggle, and this is just a number. But you could use like letters or whatever here, text, or even like a true false. If you just have 2 buttons here, you can use a true false too. But basically when you click on one of these, it changes this number in the user's record, and then you can use that number that's stored to change what's visible on this page. So like when they click requests, it changes it to 1. They click upcoming, it changes it to 2. They click past, it changes it to 3, and so on. So we're just going to make these lists do exactly that. So I'm only going to make this sometimes visible if the logged in user's sessions toggle is equal to 1. And then this one, we're only going to make this one visible if the logged in user's sessions toggle is equal to 2. And this one if the sessions toggle is equal to 3. Adding that to your filtering. Yeah, it really is cool, doing this kind of menu structure type thing. But you don't, I mean, you can do this with drop downs too, right? Like you can just have like a really nice looking drop down up here. You just have to tie it to a collection of some kind, but you could have a drop down here. You could have like individual like just icons up here. There's like a bajillion different ways to make menus in Adalo. It's really crazy. But yeah, Matt, I'm glad that you like that. It's really cool to play around with. It's really cool to play around with this sort of setup here. Let's see. Okay, so we've got our session thing. Now we really just need like, it's mainly for the requests portion. But we really need it so that for the requests, when they click on one, they're taken to the place where they can like ask, why is this like showing up? Okay. They really need a place where they can see the time suggestions for that particular session. So what I'll probably do is just go make a duplicate of this screen here. And instead of this being sessions 2, we're just going to call this like, pick a time. And all this stuff is basically going to go away. Even that, even this. We'll leave one of the lists just in case like we need to use it for formatting or something, but let me go. Matt, yeah, you should totally do it. I was apprehensive as well. First of all, I was like, dude, nobody's going to watch this. But it turns out that like there's a handful of people that really enjoy watching them, and some people even go back and they'll watch like the entire build session. But yeah, it is always cool to see how other people develop stuff, because you can pick up those like little nuggets of information that you're like, I didn't know you could do that. Or, just little tips and tricks here and there that are cool to pick up. And honestly, like a lot of that comes from just reading as well. Like a lot of people just assume that because somebody's not asking them a question in a forum or something, that they just kind of like ignore those pieces of information that aren't relevant to them. But I've actually found that like if you go and actually look at questions that maybe don't even really interest you, there are like things that you can learn from that question. Like I work at Adalo, and sometimes the devs, they talk about stuff that I have no idea what they're talking about. But it's really helpful to still pay attention to the conversation because you can learn stuff from what they're talking about just as like a passive kind of fly on the wall. So yeah, it's really cool to like, just watch what other people do and even just reading other people's questions and stuff. Let me see, is this, okay, so that's still a button, but all right, so let me do this. Let me just, I know that this is an image, so let me copy this. And you know what, maybe this pick time, this probably needs to be a modal actually, instead of an actual screen, because they're just going there temporarily. Right, they're going to go there, pick a time that works for them, or maybe suggest a new one, and then they're going to go right back to this session screen. So I think it probably makes sense to just, make it a modal instead. And we've already got the time list here, actually, so that works out really well. For the current session too. Pick a time or suggest a new one. I don't know, we'll just keep it like we can change all this stuff. It's probably not the best way to do it. But yeah, Matt, you should totally live stream, building an app of some kind. I think you would enjoy it, and I think other people would be able to glean a lot from it as well. Oops. Let's see. Maybe we want to add maybe we want to add like a checkbox here or something for them to select. Yeah, okay, I know what we'll do. We'll do this. So instead of putting like a button here, maybe what we'll do is we'll use kind of like a similar like indicator system like we had over here. And actually this needs to be not as dark either. Okay. We'll use like this little indicator system. So I'll just copy this. And we'll paste it down here. So we've got this little rectangle that was from that other screen. I think if we drop this, that was weird. Or actually, you know what? We've got it already here. Let's just make a copy of it here. That way we know everything is the same. There we go. And then from here, we'll just change the look of it, I guess. Okay. And then maybe what we'll do is we'll say, I don't think we can say if the date and times are equal. I don't think. Because we really only want this blue one to show up if this time is the one that they actually selected. So, and then we'll probably also need like a done button down here at the bottom too. So let's go ahead and do this rounding. White. Yeah, done. I think we did all uppercase, right? Yeah. And this will have conditional visibility on it as well. So, I guess the only visibility here is just that, like, does it have a start and end time or no? And in order to get that information, we got to link to this screen from this request list first. So we'll actually put the action on the list item, I guess, instead of on the button. Link to, what is this screen called? Oops. Yeah, so this should really be called pick a time. And let's make this link to the pick a time screen. And it's a modal, it's a pop-up screen. And it's sending the current session data, which is good, because that's what we need to both filter this list. So it is a list of suggested times. I'm just going to reset this list. Suggested times, and it's only the current session's suggested times. So I'm going to go ahead and reset this magic text too. Current suggested time. Wait, is that right? Date and time. There we go. Same thing with this one. So current suggested time, date and time. And I'm not sure, is there a, yeah, so we need to remove this update action too, because we don't need that. And this is an icon that I don't think we need, actually. Okay. All right, and we'll come back to this conditional logic here, but let's go ahead and do the visibility on this button. So we only want the done button to show up if they've actually selected a time. So it's only going to be visible if the current sesh start date and time. And we don't have, yeah, see, this is what I was afraid of. We don't have an is equal to empty option here. So what we can do is when they select a, I know we had it set so that the session, like when they select a date and time, it was just going to kind of put it, like paste it here in this start date and time. But in addition to that, we probably also need to have a relationship so that each session can only have a relationship to one suggested time. So we're going to do something that's like kind of weird, but can work for, like, in reality, we need like a one-to-one relationship, right? Each session can only have one chosen suggested time, and each chosen suggested time can only have one session, right? They're like, it's like a one-to-one relationship. So, but we don't really have that in Adalo, just because most of the time properties work just fine. But a way around this, if you absolutely want to have a, yeah, the forums are great. Yeah. And in fact, the forums, there's so much information in there. Like sometimes it's almost overwhelming sometimes. Like when you go to look for like the answer to an issue. But there's like a wealth of good resources and tutorials and like some really good community stuff that people have made on there, for sure. So I'm gonna make let's do a relationship to suggested times again, but I'm gonna make it so that each session only belongs to one suggested time. Like, and this property is not going to be a suggested time anymore. This is going to be like, okay, which suggested time did I select for this session? So I'm going to choose this first one right here, and you can see like this. There's like a singular sheet of paper here, and this one is we're going to call this, like, instead of suggested time, we're going to call this like chosen suggested time. And that way, when the user actually clicks on one of these, it's actually going to update the current sesh, and it's going to set that chosen suggested time as the current suggested time, which is the one that's in this list, whichever one they click on. And that actually assigns it to that session, like relationally, not just filling in the date and time here. We can do that too, I think. It's probably not going to hurt. Like start date and time, we can put the current suggested times date and time there, right? Just to make sure. But for filtering purposes and for visibility purposes, we need to have that relationship there. And that's so that we can we can make this done button visible only if the current session's chosen suggested time, date and time, or actually, let's do this. If the current session's chosen suggested time, let's see, we'll have to evaluate it off of a name property. And I'm glad this is happening because this happens quite frequently, actually. Current sessions, chosen suggested times, name is not equal to empty. Yeah, so basically with this, and we don't have anything, like when a time is created, there's currently no information saved in the like when they make a suggested time, there's no information saved in this name property. But what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that something is put in here. And it can even just be like date and time, right, in this thing. It doesn't even really matter. We just need to know, like, does the session have a chosen suggested time? And the only way to do that is to evaluate, like, does that time actually exist? Like, is it actually a real thing? And so that's kind of what we're saying here in this filter. Like, this done button is only going to be visible if the current session's chosen suggested time, see chosen suggested times name, is not equal to empty, right? So if it is equal to empty, if it doesn't have a suggested times name, then that means it doesn't have a suggested time, a chosen suggested time. And if it doesn't have a chosen suggested time, we don't want them to finish yet. We don't want them to click done until they've actually accepted one. It's kind of confusing, but I hope that makes sense. But in order for that to work, we do need to save something in the suggested time when it's created. So let's go over here, and so when they click add here, we're just going to create like an automatic field for the name, and we're just going to fill this in with like the let's just do like start of today. And just call it relative. Like it literally does not even matter what the name of it is. You could even like generate a random number here, right? I mean, it doesn't, as long as it has something in this field that is not empty. So maybe a random number is better. So we'll just add a formula. We'll do custom formula. Let's go down here to the functions here, and we're going to do a rand function. This is the random number function, and I want it to generate, I think we may have looked at this before, but I want to look at like I'm gonna create a random number. We can call it like maybe a suggested time ID. Maybe that's what it's called. But I want to generate a number that is 10 digits long, right? Every single time. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that I start with like a 1 here, and then I'll type like 9 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I've got 10 digits there. And now I need to set the upper band or the upper limit for the random number. So I'm just going to do like 10 nines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'll close this parentheses. All right, so this is going to generate a random number between this number and this number. And it's going to be 10 digits every time because that's how many digits we included here. And I'll set the number format to none, of course. And now we've got like an ID that we can use. So maybe what I'll do is I'll go back to the database and just like rename this suggested times. We'll call this, instead of the name, we'll call it the ID. I think that'll work good. And again, it doesn't even matter what that is. Like you could put like Ooga Booga in there, right? And all this the done button is doing over here is just seeing whether or not that field is empty or not, right? And if it is empty, that means that they haven't chosen a time yet. So let's just make sure that this is good. Suggested time ID is not equal to empty. Yep. So that works. And we also want to, after they select the time, we want it to be, we want this to show up. So let's change some visibility here as well. Like this is only going to be visible if the current session's chosen suggested times ID is not equal to the current suggested times ID. So in other words, like if the date that I picked here is not the same as the one that's listed here, then it needs to be gray. Because that means that's not the one that I picked. If they are equal, then I want it to be blue because that means that it is the one that I picked, right? So that the chosen time ID and this time ID are exactly the same, basically. And so this one's going to have kind of the opposite logic here. So if the current suggested times ID is equal to the current session's chosen suggested times ID, then show this one. And then when they click done, we need to kind of think about, this is just going to be a back button. We don't want it to delete the session. Link back. Okay. So when they click done, we actually want it to also mark this as updated. So we're just going to update the current session, and we're going to mark this as accepted is true. Okay, so when they click done, that means that they've assigned a time to it, they've accepted it, and it's now removed from their requests, right, because of that visibility, and it's put into their upcoming list here. Okay, and then I think the last thing that we need to do is actually maybe put like a button here that says, I need to turn off this shadow. Maybe put a button here that says like, none of these work for me, suggest another time. I mean, not that long, obviously, but like, suggest another time. And let's make it like gray instead. And one thing, like these should stay in place, but sometimes these can like shift around a little bit. And if they do that, we can always just pin it to the bottom of the screen. But we'll look at that when we test it. Okay, so we've got a way for them to pick a time that someone has suggested. And then I also just realized that requests may not be a good name for this here, because you may not always be the receiver of a request. Maybe you are the person doing the requesting. And like, I guess maybe that's, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we can leave it as requests for now. If somebody's got a different suggestion, please let me know, because I'm not exactly sure what that should be. But okay, so I think now we can actually get to the point where when they suggest another time, we already have that screen built out. So, and this screen is receiving the same type of information, I think. Well, except for current user. Okay. So this could actually present an issue. So since we're sending two different types of data to the screen instead of just the current session data, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this screen, I think. Yeah. If it was just sending, like, this screen right here is receiving just the current session data from this screen. And if that were the case with this one up here, we could just share this screen between the two. But because this screen is also receiving the current user's information from here, it's not going to work the way that we want. So I'm just going to make a duplicate of that, and that way when they click on this, we can just link them to this suggest. We'll just call this suggest new session times. And then maybe because like when they're adding, new session times, maybe we need it to mark the existing ones as like not available, if that makes sense. I think maybe that is probably going to be the best way to do it. And this is kind of going to be tricky because a lot of app building is thinking about like what could happen, right? What could a user do that would cause an issue? And in this case, this is going to be a little bit hard to explain, but like in this case, say that I'm a user, I come in here, I see these dates, I click on one, it selects this date and ties it to the session as like, okay, this person, like I chose this date and now it's tied to the session. But then I'm actually like, actually, you know what? That time doesn't actually work for me. I need to suggest something else. So they click on this and we actually need it to like, because they chose one and then kind of like went back on that decision and then click this suggest another time, we actually need to clear that out of the session information. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a reset field. And this is kind of an interesting way to do this. And you can do this with filtering as well. This is a good way to like create filters. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a, in our sessions collection here, we're going to create another one that's exactly like this chosen suggested time. So we're going to create a relationship here between the suggested times. And again, it's just this first one here. And all this field is going to do is it's going to serve as a reset. So we're going to call this reset. And I usually like to like capitalize these. And this is reset chosen suggested time. And this field stays empty all the time. This relationship always stays empty. And the reason for that is because if they choose something here, right, if they choose this time, we're updating the session, right, to be the current suggested time. There's not actually a way to clear this out, right? We can't reset this back to empty. You see, like, it gives us all kinds of different options here, but we can't reset it to nothing. So, because by default, these update actions are just no change, right? We can't ever reset it back. But what we can do is we can leave one of these relationships empty and as like a dedicated reset field. And then if they click on this suggest another time button, we can actually update the session. Now let me delete this one and re-add a new one. We can actually update the current session. We can update that chosen suggested time to be this, whatever this value is. And since this value is always empty, it's going to reset it to empty. So this is just going to be the current session's reset chosen suggestion, right? And that's a cool way to like reset a field back to empty if we ever need to do that. I mean, you can do this with anything, right? It doesn't even have to be a relationship field. You can do this with a text field, number field, date field. You can do it pretty much with any property almost, except for probably true false. Well, no, you can do it with true false too, but there's given options there. So, James, yeah. I mean, full disclosure, I work for Adalo, but I was using Adalo for like probably 2 years before I started working for them. So I can fully say like Adalo, in my opinion, is probably the best platform out there to build for multiple platforms at the same time, right? Like you can spend all this time mocking this out in like Figma or something, but at the end of the day, it's still just a mock-up, right? So like, why not just build the fully functioning app at the same time that you're building the mock-up? And then when you get done, you just send it to Apple, send it to Google. You can have it share the same database and have like a web version of this app too. So yeah, like I'm totally there with you. I love the functionality of Adalo. It makes sense. You know, it's not overly complicated. There's plenty of components and stuff to pick from, QR codes and scanners and charts. And there's, private component developers making stuff all the time. So yeah, James, I'm totally there with you, man. Totally there with you. Yeah, so all right, so we've got our reset here. So when they click this, if they've chosen something here and then they're like, I need a different time. When they click this, it's going to reset it back to 0. And probably, honestly, it's probably good to do it here as well on the back button, just to update the current session to that reset. So yeah, that's how we're going to do that. And then when they do click suggest another time, we don't want it to just update the session. We want it to, like, ideally what would be nice, right, if we could wave a magic wand, is if when they click this suggest another time, it would be great if it could like mark all of these as like not available, right? So that they can see that here in the list, or maybe even delete them altogether. Something like that. And there are ways to do that. There are ways to do bulk updates to a bunch of records at once using the countdown component. But we'd have to think a little bit more about what that might look like, because we need it to happen we need that action to happen in between these two screens, right? So when they click suggest another time, we don't want to be taken to like an intermediary screen or something. We need it to happen as soon as they click this. And we don't have bulk update. We can't batch update stuff. But what we might be able to do is add, we'll have to think about that one. For now, you know what, we'll just keep it like this so that they can suggest a time, create a new suggested time. We'll ask them to suggest 3 as well, at least 3. And we've already got like pretty much all the information here. So all we're going to do is just link this button to this suggest extra time screen. Suggest new session times. That's what it's called. Modal. Yeah. And also, James, you know, like, I don't know if you're still on the stream or not, but it's also really important, I think, to understand that just because something is no code does not necessarily mean that you don't have to also think like a coder in some sense, right? Like you still have to plan out your workflow, kind of like we're doing here, just anticipating what could go wrong, what a user could do. So you do have to have like some idea of like how a database works, how screens should flow, certain things like that. But yes, it makes it so much easier, you know, to do, to build apps and stuff. And the functionality of it is just incredible. And also just understanding that there are limitations in Adalo. And I don't say that in a negative way. I say it as in like, if you were given the entire tool set for code, like you wouldn't need this platform, right? You would just go and learn code. But one of the kind of limiting factors of no code is that you have to make choices, right? You have to sometimes compromise on stuff. You have to make trade-offs or find workarounds for certain things. And that's just part of it. It fits within the framework. You just have to understand that when you're creating stuff, you have to fit it within the framework that Adalo has given us. So I don't say that as a negative at all. It's actually a good thing. Like I'm a huge Halo fan, right? And my wife would probably be cracking up right now, but one of the big things about Halo was that you can only carry 2 weapons, right, at any given time. And that was like a game changer as far as first-person shooters were concerned, because, you know, for the longest time, your character could carry, you know, you think about like Quake, right? The old Quake game, you could carry like 10, 15 different weapons, right? And then when Halo came out, they were like, nope, you got to pick between 2. And so it really made you think about how you play, to be strategic about how you know, play the game and how you move from level to level and things. And it's no different with this, right? A good example of that right here is in the branding, right? Like people are wanting, you know, you hear people like in the forum say like, oh, like, oh, I wish we could just make random fonts in here. But Adalo limits you to kind of these, like picking 2 fonts, right? A heading and a body. And then within those, you can choose like italics, bold, and then some different weights and things. But this is actually good because any good designer will tell you that you really shouldn't have over 2 fonts anyway. Anything over 2 fonts and it starts to look like, you know, what is it, that world's worst website or whatever? It starts to look like that, right? It starts to look like you have no brand. You don't have any cohesiveness throughout your app. And so Adalo is like really kind of forcing you to use good design by only letting you use 2 fonts. And I think that's great. Like that's a, you know, if you go to typography school or design school, that's what they teach you is, you know, you can use fonts within that family, right? Different weights and italics and stuff, but it's typically good to just stay within two font families. So as long as we understand that we have to work within that framework, that Adalo has given us, and you could do so much different stuff. There's very, very few things that you can think of that you probably couldn't build. Maybe like some augmented reality stuff or something. And I'm sure that that's probably on the horizon at some point. Some developer will probably come along with some sort of embeddable augmented reality thing that you can embed in an iframe or something. So yeah, there's a bunch of functionality packed into Adalo for sure. Sorry, that was a tangent. I don't know what's going on. So we got suggest another time. Suggest at least 3 times here. Okay, so yeah. So we've got the session information here on the available data screen. Current sesh data. Linked data. Yeah. All right, so we're good. And then all we need here is after they've added those sessions here, maybe we want to sort these from create a date newest to oldest. And then when they click done, it's just going to send them back to this screen. But in reality, like if we click back again, or actually if we click back, we don't want to update the session. I just realized this. This is going to make it no good. Maybe this done button, instead of taking us back, it just needs to send us to the sessions screen. Link to sessions. Yeah, I think that's right. And actually, I just realized this does not need to be the back button. This needs to be the X button. Probably. Boom. Okay. Do an update current sesh. Make sure that we do this reset again. And then link back. Or link to sessions. Yeah. And we'll probably have to change this transition because it's going to look weird going from a modal to then a push, but we can fix that when we get there. And what I'm trying to avoid is like getting in this loop of backs, because if I go here and I hit back, it's just going to send me to this screen. But if I go here and then I go here and then I hit back, this button will send me here, but then when I hit back again on this one, it's going to send me back to this screen, and I'll be caught in this loop kind of between these two screens. So the way to get out of that is to basically either make both of them go to sessions, or to, like in this case, we're making both of them go to, or this one this one goes back just to this screen. And then this one goes to sessions, and then the done button also goes to sessions, right? Because when they're done suggesting new times, they don't need to be taken back here because they just suggested new times. So really when they click done, they can just go back to this sessions screen, right? Okay, and then I guess the last thing that we need to add here is just this. This was a complicated screen to build. Is just the ignore button, right? And I think what I'm going to do is just copy this so that I have the styling correct, and we'll just paste it right here. And we'll make this wide as well. I don't know if it looks kind of funky, but we'll get there. And again, this may not be the final design, but yeah. So this will be always visible. And when they click on it, we really just want it to update the current sesh and mark it as they ignored it, right? And then we should also make that true in this request list so that it doesn't show up anymore. Accepted is false and ignored is false. Okay. At some point, we will probably have users that accidentally ignore something and then they have to go back and find them again. But we can cross that bridge when we get there. We're looking for like an MVP right now. We're not looking for something that has tons and tons of functionality built out. But I think this is good. So let's get into, all right, so that covers the request section here. Let's get into the actual meat of this, which is the video call portion, right? So when a session is coming up, right, either, well, not in past, but in upcoming, we want them to be able to go in here, click on upcoming, click on the session, and then it just take them straight into the session room, right? So I don't want it to actually create that session, I don't think, until they've accepted it. I think that's probably the way it needs to work. So maybe that's another thing that we need to have here that happens is we need a field to hold the ID for the daily.co room. And I don't see, we haven't built that property out yet, but let's go to the daily.co website here. And I can't remember, oh, there we go, cool. We've already created a room here, and I honestly can't remember how we're supposed to refer to this as, if we can just refer to it as the room, or if we have to use the ID here. But I would imagine that we probably have to use the ID. But it does give us this URL, and because we have this subdomain here, it's probably hard for you guys to see, but this just says spitball.daily.co. So we have our kind of our own subdomain here, and then appended to the end of this is just the name of the room, not the ID. So what I'm going to do is just go over here to the let me go to the API docs. Here they are. And I think embedding this is honestly as easy as linking it to your domain. Let me make sure that this is correct. Go to rooms here. Okay, so post, yes. Embed. Let's see if they have a search up here. Like I said last time, I don't know this documentation well, and I don't really have any of this prepared beforehand. So this is just what you go through when you're trying to build out stuff like this. You just have to read and research and look on forums and ask questions if you can and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to search for embed daily pre-built. And this is what I'm pretty sure that this is what we want to use. And the only thing that we have to do is just a daily room URL. So basically we're just going to copy this script right here, this HTML script. Or actually it says, hang on. This is where we need to read. So first you'll need a daily room URL, which we have, and we can generate. Once you have one ready, replace yourteam.daily.co/hello in the code snippet below with your own room URL. Okay. You can pass. Okay, so that's for JavaScript. I'm pretty sure that we can actually just use this with the iframe embed component, or the web view component in Adalo. So I'm just going to copy this screen real quick, and then we'll delete everything that's here, because we need a kind of a blank slate to start with. And then we'll call this join session, or join sesh, I don't know, something like that. And I'm going to stick the web view component, which is under simple right here. I'm just going to stick this web view component right here. And this URL, I'm pretty sure that we can literally just take this, the URL that we have right here. Let me go back to my rooms here. Click on this. We can just take this URL, because this URL doesn't change. It's just the little, they call this a slug line. This slug after this is the only thing that changes. So I'm just going to copy this, and we're going to paste it right here somehow. There we go. Spitball.daily.co. So that's my daily.co subdomain there. And the only other thing that I need to do is make sure that the room is created and attached to this session. So once they've accepted this, on this done button here, we probably need to go ahead and add our custom action to generate a daily call. And I think this was in build session 2 that we set this up. But basically this generates the daily call room, if you will. It doesn't take any inputs. It just makes a simple call to my daily account with the API key. I can show you real quick. It just makes a quick call to this with a post. This is my API key here, just with a simple header. If I run it, it'll just create a room and then return information about that room. So because it's returning information about the room, I can, let's just rename this name property to like room ID or room name or something. Let's just call it daily.co room name. And that way, when it returns that information, I can use magic text here and then go to, see where it says generate daily call here. I can put in the name of the room that it actually created. And it's going to save it to this session right here. And custom actions, if you're wanting to use the outputs from them, they have to go above the action that you want to use them in. So in this case, I'm using information from this action in the update action, so it needs to be above it. Let me go ahead and click done there. So that's going to save us a session, or save a room to the session. And it's scheduled now. At some point we'll have to build a calendar, but when the user clicks on, this is the upcoming list, when they click on this, I really want it to send information about that session to this join session screen. So I'm just going to link it to the join session. And we will, that push is fine, I guess. It's sending current session information, which is what we want. And then in this URL, I'm just going to put as dynamic data on this, in this slug right here, I'm just going to put the current sessions daily.co room name. And so in this case, the room name is KYLD7R whatever. And you can specify this if you want to, but to my knowledge, daily just kind of generates this for you. It's just like random numbers and letters, which for our purposes works perfectly fine. Like, I do not care what the room name is, just as long as it has an ID of some kind. And so now when the user goes here, they are able to join the meeting and, talk talk to each other, right, with audio or video, I believe. And I think there's actually a way where you can you can tell daily.co whether you want to start it with the camera off or on, the mic on or off. I think there's a bunch of different stuff that you can change about it. But let me go back and see if I can see where that is. I do not want the guides. Here, let's open this. Okay. I don't want the guides. I only want the documentation. So rooms, pagination. We don't really need that. Meeting tokens. Okay, so here's some properties that you can add actually to this. And this needs to be sent in the custom action, actually. So there's a bunch of different options that you can send here with this. You can enable knocking so that like before a person can join, they have to like knock on the meeting to be let in. Enable screen share. This lets them, screen share with each other. I said the default is true, and that's fine for me. I it's great that, to let people share screens with each other. Enable chat. They don't really need to chat in there. Start video off. Default is false. So, in other words, when the meeting starts, their camera is going to be on. Same thing with audio. When the meeting starts, their audio is automatically going to be on. Recording. I'm on the free plan of daily right now, so I'm not going to enable recording. The default language of the daily pre-built video call UI for this room. So there's all these different values over here that you can plug in. And if you have your users actually select what language they speak, you can have the UI show up dynamically for that person's language, which is freaking cool. We're not going to get that in depth until like probably the end, maybe. And then you've also, okay, so this is cool too. You've got a meeting join hook, and this is basically a web hook. You can tell it, you can give daily a URL that it will send notifications to. So like if you want to be notified every time, or let's see, like if you want the person to be notified when the other person joins the session, you could set up like an Integromat scenario, have like a webhook that's listening to this, and Daily will actually send a notification to that webhook with some information that says, hey, so-and-so joined this room and they're waiting, they're waiting for you or whatever. And then what you can do is you can use the Adalo API to actually send a notification to the other user that says, that's branded Spitball or whatever, and that says, hey, so-and-so just joined your session, click here to join it, right? And then when they click on it, it takes them to the sessions page where then they can click on it and join the meeting. So really, really powerful stuff right here with this webhook. There's all kinds of really freaking cool stuff that you can do with that. And they even have like a guide here on how to do it, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so lots of cool different parameters here that we could send if we wanted to, but I kind of like the default setup as it is. I think that will look pretty cool, honestly. And we can test this out in just a second, maybe. But I'm going to go ahead and put like a back button on here so that I don't forget. And we'll just kind of scoot this over a little bit, and let's replace it with the actual back button. And maybe we don't want to like link them back immediately. Maybe we want to like put a pop-up over this, or like a modal that says, "Are you sure you want to leave the session?" or something. So I think I'm actually going to do that as well. And we can get rid of all this stuff. Get rid of this. We're going to call it leave this sesh. And I don't really like how it does the text wrapping there, so we might just scoot this over a little bit. And maybe we'll call it like that's a wrap. Camera and mic that you use to stream. Oh, that's a good point. I've never had anybody ask me that. I am using I can't remember I think it's like I'll try to post it in the YouTube description, but the webcam is a is a Logitech 920 or something like that. 820, I can't remember, one of those. And the microphone is a AudioTechnica AT875R. There you go. It's a really good mic. It's super directional so that it pushes away sound, or so that it's cuts out sound that's not directly in front of it, which is really nice. It's typically used in like a boom mic almost, but yeah, good question. Leave this session, and then I'm just going to copy this button from up here since it's already formatted correctly. Continue. Maybe we don't. This may be confusing. That's a wrap. Let's just call it like, yes, I'm done. And maybe we'll just grab this whole thing here and just move this down to the middle here. One of the things that I've never really understood is why the convention was to put the back button at the top. I know that everybody's used to that now, and if the back button's down here at the bottom, it throws people off. But like, I've never understood why we started ever putting the back button or any buttons at the top, honestly. Because like your thumbs are down here at the bottom of the screen. So like, you know how hard it is to like reach your thumb. These are first world problems, obviously, but it's so hard to reach your thumb up or like use your other hand, you know, to touch stuff at the top of the screen. But, you know, design language, I guess. So we have a way to leave it. I don't want this to, let's make this link to the correct places here. This actually just needs to link back, and so does that button. But yes, I'm done. This actually does need to link to the sessions page. Now unavailable on sessions screen. Oh, yes, that's fine. Okay. Cool. Yeah, so actually that brings up a good point. It's not always a bad thing that it's missing from this link, right? Because this screen right here, this session screen, is receiving data from like it's receiving data from all four of these screens here. And even though like if I click on available data, you'll see like it's missing from everywhere. But this doesn't really matter because we have a list of sessions here anyway for people to click on, right? It doesn't matter that it loses that information because we're not trying to display any information about the current session. So it's not a big deal. Anywhere else in the app, probably it is a big deal, but especially on like these main home screens, main menu screens, it does not matter at all. All right, so we've got a way to join the session, to suggest new session time, or let's call this something else, like we'll call it like leave sesh. Cool beans. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, I guess, create a session. Come from desktop. Yeah, you're right, Matt. That's true. Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's a good point. Yeah, because the back button is up there in the top left for desktop development for Mac and actually for all systems, I think. Linux too. Yeah, you're right. Firefox Mobile does it with bottom buttons. Yeah. Yeah. But the strange thing is, like, it's people are so used to having the back button at the top now that anytime I come across an app that has the back button at the bottom, it like throws me for a loop. I'm like, where? How do I go back? And then I look at the bottom and I'm like, oh, it's down there. So like retraining people's minds to not put stuff up at the top of a screen is like, it's going to be really tough to do. And maybe it's not even necessary at this point. It's not even worth it at this point. People are so used to just clicking stuff all over the screen that it doesn't even matter. But yeah, you're probably right. It probably did come from the desktop world, honestly. Natural to look to the left. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Heavens, I'm looking to the left right now. Like this sidebar over here is on the left. I mean, like, it's just, or to the top. Yeah. I mean, anywhere in that area, honestly. I think, yeah. I mean, at this point, we're like so into conventions now that if you don't stick within the conventions, people like subconsciously, they don't like your app, right? Unless it's just like really, really intuitive or really, really special or something. Like for the longest time, I've wanted to create an app that has like, that asks you before you even sign up if you're left-handed or right-handed, and then puts the buttons in like an arc, right? Because like when you're holding your phone and you like move your thumb across it, your thumb moves in an arc, right? Like a quarter of a circle. And I've always thought it'd be cool to like have a button down here in the bottom, and then when you click on it, it like expands out, and then you have buttons across here that are really, really easy to press or something. Oh yeah, that's true. It could be coming from us using reading from left to right, top to bottom. Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really great point. I wonder if I'd be interested to hear from some Japanese makers, like what their thoughts are on that. Or is it Japanese? I know Hebrew is backwards, but I can't remember. There's some Asian languages that are backwards, I think, as well. Is that right? Something like that. Or down, like they read top to bottom, I think. So yeah, it'd be interesting to hear about that. Okay, cool. So we've got that. Let's let me go before we run out of time. Let's test it and see like what happens here. If you want, actually, what may be cool is there's probably a ton of stuff that's like unforeseeably broken at the moment, but we could share it and try to like all hop into a meeting. me just make sure that that workflow is good. Okay, so they go here. You have to find somebody first, I guess, that you want to meet with. That creates a session. You suggest some times. The other person accepts the times. Here, it moves it into their upcoming. Then when they click on their upcomings, they join the session. Is that right? Start date is after current time. Yeah, I don't know. Let's try to do something here. I'm joining to both. Why not? Animation. I need to add some more categories here. This is always the bad part. Like, I'm terrible at thinking up of categories. If there was somebody that had a CSV of just like all kinds of cool categories and interests, I would pay for that because it's so hard to find these things or think of these things. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just adding a bunch of stuff here. I don't think there is anybody else. Hang on. I think this is supposed to be my... Oh, no, I'm signed in as chief. Okay. All right, so this is somebody else. All right. Okay, so clearly the interests are not working correctly, but let's view my profile and see what happens. Oh, okay. Let's see, specialties. So, all right, so I added some stuff here. Let's click on the... This looks weird. This looks like it has too much of a border around it. So I'll probably have to fix that. Also don't have any ratings yet, and all this stuff needs to be hidden until a person has a rating, I think. Let me click on this. Let's suggest a time today at 4 p.m. That's not what I wanted to happen. Is it linking back? Is this add button linking back? What the freak? Why is it linking back? Okay, that clearly does not need to be there. Link back. Okay, let's try this again. Let me just delete the session, or let me delete the suggested time. Oh, but it created the ID. That's good. We just do that, and then let's delete the session as well. And it put both of us as participants, so that's cool too. Sweet. All right, so that's not too bad. Okay, so let's say I click on... So we share at least a couple of interests here. Wait, do I? Hang on. Business, app development, animation, and anime. And this Patrick fellow, freaking hippie weirdo, he likes business, app development, and animation. So that's cool. All right, I forgot that I had already built that out. So it compares your interests with other people and suggests that you follow people who share your interests. I'd forgotten about that. So let's try this again. 4:41, we'll add that. Okay, so it creates a time for us. That's good. Let's add another time so that we can get out of this view here. And I'll probably want to sort these correctly. August 7th. Cool. All right, so we've added 3, and it gives us the done option. And it marks it that he has a session, a pending session. I'll probably want to count, add a filter to this count here, but okay, cool. So let's go. This will not let me go back. Great. I didn't like this button anyway. What we'll do is add a border to it, probably. White border. This does not need to delete a sesh, that's for sure. But it does need to link back. And this is just part of the process. I'm sure that, you know, Matt, anybody else who's built, you've seen this happen before as well. But you get in there and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like, I copied this button and now it's like deleting the stuff that I'm just creating or whatever. It doesn't perform the way that you think it should. But I just realized that oh my gosh. It's got I just realized that it put like a square around it. Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh my gosh. It's so, yeah. Like this happened perfectly here, but I guess I have to add hang on. Oh, I know what it is. All right. So we need to add some rounding here. An idiot. Okay. All right. Perfect. That looks much better. All right. Okay, so let's go to sessions and hopefully, oh joy, the sessions button doesn't work. So this third tab needs to link to the sessions page. No transition. Okay. This takes a lot of time to test one feature. I'm literally just trying to test the video call. That's really all I care about at the moment. Oh, okay. So this is happening because I'm a new user and I don't actually have anything set as my sessions toggle. So what really needs to happen is on this sessions button, before it links to that sessions screen, it needs to update the logged in users sessions toggle to be 1, so that it always goes to their requests first. And that's the reason that wasn't showing up. Yeah. So this is cool. So I'm logged in as chief and it's showing me the other person's information. So even though I was the one that made the request, it's showing that I have a session with this person and like I made this request. Or maybe I could put an indicator here that says like, you requested a session with so-and-so. Upcoming is nothing because Patrick has not accepted the request yet, and past is nothing because I don't have any sessions in the past. So let me see if I can log in as Patrick really quick. Do I have a log out? I don't think I have a way to log out. Perfect. Awesome. Great. I have to add a log out button, apparently. But where to add it? That is the question. We need... Yes, we need this button over here too. Except I think this one needs to actually link home instead of back. I think to home. Or, well, maybe push would be good. Yeah, I need a logout button. I honestly, I can build this out later. I'm just trying to get us to the testing point where we can actually test the thing. So again, the bike guy is going to do all the heavy lifting for us here. User login, log out, and then we want to link to the splash screen. Do I have a welcome maybe? Is that the right screen? And I just need to sign in as somebody else, essentially. Or really as Patrick here. Let me change my password because I can't even remember what it is. Let's see. Okay, so I'm logged in as Chief. This is my profile. I don't have a profile picture yet, which is why that's not showing. Log in. It's not my password anymore. I'm curious to see if it's going to show. Oh, that's weird. Why is it showing the... It's showing the notification. All right, so we'll have to fix that in a second too. Sessions. Chief and you. Okay, so it's not... All right, so this is good. It's showing Chief and you. So we'll click on this. Pick on a time. Okay, so these dates are formatted wrong. We've got to change these dates. Or I can ignore this person. Why is my suggest a new time not showing up? Huh. Oh, it's because I haven't selected a time yet. Okay. That's dumb. That needs to always be there, actually. We need to change the visibility on that. That's pretty important. Pick a time or suggest a new one. I wonder what happens if I do this. Let me just... Okay. This should be... It should actually reset this. Hang on. It went away. Okay, so we clearly got some stuff going on here. Let's see. The first one, right off the bat, is this suggest another time. This needs to be always visible, not just sometimes. And it does need to update the sesh, yes. And then I'm actually going to set this list so that it automatically updates when a user adds new items. And then I'm not sure why that one went away, because this one is, it still should be current sessions suggested times, but for some reason when I went back to the screen, it did not display the correct information. So maybe that's because it deleted the sesh. It's probably a good reason. Jeez. All right, so let's do this. The joys of testing. Let's go back in here to Chief. I'm going to change Chief's password as well to test, because that way I can log in as either one. All right, so let's do this. And that's the other thing that I got to fix. As my own. I've got to fix all these transitions too. They are not correct, obviously. Who to follow doesn't show up here. Oh, it's because Chief doesn't have a profile picture. So let's log in as him, actually, and we will... chief@gmail.com and test. Let's create a new session with this weird Patrick guy again. That's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'll click done. Probably should move done to the bottom, probably. Okay, so he's got one sesh. Cool. Let me check my sessions. Awesome. Let's go ahead and log out from Chief and log in as Patrick. And we'll go to sessions. There's the request. There's our suggest another time option. Click on that. We can either click done or suggest another time. Let's suggest another time and make sure that this actually works. Okay, yeah, so, all right, so those are, that probably, we'll probably revisit that. You can add sessions to the profile picture. Seems like a lot of clicks to make a sesh. Yeah, no, it does. I was just noticing that, actually. It does seem like a lot of clicks to make a sesh. Well, actually, so yeah, this portion we're just, like, the sesh has already been made at this point. We're just kind of selecting which times work best for us, I guess. But yeah, it is a lot of clicks to get to the profile picture. Seems like a lot of clicks. Yeah. Yeah, we'll probably have to revisit this flow here because this is kind of weird. Pick a time or suggest a new one. All right, so we'll click done. And that should have updated and linked us back. Why did it put it? Oh, I'm an idiot. Hold on. We'll just change this really quick in the database. It's because I selected the time that was today. So it thinks it's in the past. Which means that we should probably use the in-between option instead of as after, but let's go to sessions. Accepted. The chosen suggested time, let's make it this one instead. And we'll make this like sometime after right now. That's probably good. Okay, now we should have this in upcoming, hopefully. And there's our daily meeting room. It's asking me if it wants to use my microphone and camera. Allow. Legit. Sweet. All right. So, and then, all right. So then we click the back button. I'm not sure why the back button isn't working. I need to look at that again. I don't think I actually linked it to that modal screen that I made. But ideally, they would click that. It pop up a modal saying like, "Are you sure you want to leave?" Then they click leave, and they're done. So that's pretty cool. And then when they click they're done, it's just gonna delete the room, I guess, or maybe auto delete it. We'll have to look at the API for that, but maybe auto delete, and then that way it's not using up our queue of rooms. Question about that issue you just had. If you pick a time and date, it doesn't show when it is today's date. Do you have a way or a hack to get this working? Yeah. So yeah, the way that I was like thinking about doing that, right? Because the way that the upcoming, or I'm sorry, the way that the past list works is that it's displayed in past if the start and date time is before the current time. Well, the current time is actually down to like the second, right? So if this date is even 1 second before the current time, it's going to show it as a past meeting, even if like the meeting is still going on. So probably what we need to do is set this to like set the upcoming filter to if the start date and time is between, and then provide like a set of dates that it can fall between. Yeah. And we can even say like, it doesn't even have to be current time. We can say like, it's considered upcoming if it's between like the current time and like the, like, you know, however long the meeting is. I don't know, like maybe it's considered upcoming if it's, let's see, considered upcoming if it's between like 1 hour ago and some future date, right? Like sometime after it ends. So you could say like, tomorrow or something. Well, no, not tomorrow, because you'd want to be able to see. Really, what needs to happen, and we'll build this out next time, is like we need to have like an end date field as well, so that then we can calculate and say, okay, how long after the end date does it get moved out of upcoming? And that's like a whole nother. That's like at least an hour or so trying to get that squared away. The point is that it can be done. We just need to use this is between, right, to define like when it starts or when it begins, when the beginning of when it's considered an upcoming meeting and the end of when it's considered an upcoming meeting, and that in between function kind of helps us do that. So. Yeah, we'll probably look at that next week, next Friday, but we're pretty close, like, aside from, like, little small stuff like that, and, displaying the person's profile, like, right now it's showing the logged in user's profile photo, and, like, it definitely does not need to show that. It needs to show this. The uploaded image, not the placeholder image. That was hilarious, but yeah. Because now this should be correct. Yeah. But aside from little stuff like that, like we're almost there. Like we just finished implementing the main, like the crux of the app here, which is this daily.co. And I mean, you saw like that was so freaking easy to do. It's literally just an iframe with a URL in it with the specific room name. So hopefully next time we'll be able to like finish it up, tidy it up, and then maybe next time we can, like, I'll share the link with everybody in the chat and we can all jump into a meeting of some kind and check it out and test it and stuff. And then after that, I'll probably look, Matt, at like what you said about the profile thing, figuring out a way to make it easier to schedule a session, or like maybe not this portion of it where you're actually making the session, but definitely the part where you're like trying to pick a time for it. I think that portion needs to be refined a little bit more for sure. So we'll do that. We'll do that next week, and then from there we'll work on the website, and a lot of that will be done in Software Studio. All of it will be done in Software Studio, and then we'll look at like how to create a roadmap using Airtable and like an FAQ page and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, thanks, Matt. That means a lot to me, man. Thank you. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining in, and like I said, we'll brush up some stuff next week, and then we'll look at the payment detail. I'm not really sure what that's going to look like, but if you have thoughts on this and what it should be, definitely bring those with you and make suggestions on what this should look like. Should we use Venmo? Should we use like PayPal if we can? How? Like I'm not exactly sure. We'll dive into this. This is a whole nother bear anyway. Matt, it was back on the list page that you had. If you can add the same button to the profile image. Same button. Oh, let's see. On the list page that you had. Are you talking about this calendar button right here? Is this the button you're talking about? Yeah. The same button to the profile image. Oh, you're saying right here on this main screen? On the home screen? So that like they can just click on it. Like if they want to schedule something, they can just click on it and schedule. Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, so that would be actually really cool. So we may see if we can do that. We may actually have to make this like a custom list, because right now it's an avatar list, which is we're kind of limited to what we can do in this list. I can't just kind of like drop things into it, but we do have the option for like changing what this text does, and like maybe we could even embed it in the actual the profile image itself, maybe, or maybe even put it like right here on this preview modal, and maybe that's what this needs to be instead of having to go to their profile, like you said. Actually, let's do that real quick before I forget. Matt, I'm pretty sure this is what you're talking about. Is that what you mean? Like that? Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. No, that's a great idea. I love that. Because you're right. It is way too many. It is way too many clicks for sure. Update session. I'm not sure why it's updating. Oh, okay. I know why. But yeah. Cool. So yeah, we'll look at that next week as well. So, all righty. Everybody take care now, and we'll see you next week, all right?